UN's Humanitarian Affairs Office has said that 15 paramedics, civil defence and a UN worker were killed, in their words, one by one by the IDF. They have dug bodies up, they said, in the shallow grave that have been gathered up.
I can tell you that for too long, Hamas has abused civilian infrastructure, cynically using it to shield themselves. Hamas's actions have caused humanitarians to be caught in the crossfire.
At what point are people going to get sick and tired of that lame excuse of Hamas was using them as human shields? Now, that was State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce immediately deflecting when asked about the 15 dead Palestinian paramedics that were found in a shallow mass grave. And when Bruce was pressed on her answer, she doubled down even more.
But this is specifically a question on it's a question about accounting and accountability, given that it may have been the use of US weapons. So it's a question about the State Department rather than Hamas. Is there any action?
Well, every single thing that is happening in Gaza is happening because of Hamas. Every single dynamic. I'll say again, I've said it, I think, in every briefing. All of this could stop in a moment if Hamas returned all the hostages and the hostage bodies they are still holding and put down its weapons.
Yes, Hamas is responsible for the IDF bombing every hospital, every university, every refugee camp, killing hundreds of journalists, killing hundreds of doctors, medics, striking humanitarian aid trucks as Palestinians desperately try to get their hands on food and water. I mean, yeah, it's all Hamas using innocent people as human shields, right? It was Hamas that convinced the IDF to shoot children in the head. Snipers shot children in the head. That's according to American doctors on the ground in Gaza who kept seeing children with gunshot wounds in their heads coming to the hospital. I'm sick of it. It's so shameful that our country is aiding and abetting this. Shameful. I'm embarrassed by it. I feel a lot of shame for it. Cenk, go ahead.
Yeah, so in a minute we're going to tell you about how Netanyahu's up on corruption charges involving maybe people that worked with him taking money from Qatar. But it's okay, Hamas made them do it. Because Hamas is the excuse for everything Israel does now. In this case, they say human shields. Wait, what does human shields have to do with? You shot and murdered the medics. Hamas wasn't anywhere near them. That's why this is an issue. If you'd killed Hamas, it wouldn't be an issue. Hamas was nowhere near them and you murdered them and they were medics. So, okay, under this rubric, well, everything in Gaza is Hamas's fault. So we could just go in and boom, execute people and go, Hamas made me do it. And in fact, to Anna's point, they kind of are. The American doctors coming back and saying an extraordinary number of kids under the age of 5 with headshots from snipers from hundreds of yards away. They're not human shields. They're taking them out with headshots. But, it's all Hamas's fault. Why do you think they didn't do the very last part of the ceasefire deal where they were actually going to get all the hostages back? You think that was an accident? No, if they got all the hostages back, they couldn't blame everything on Hamas and they'd have no reason to keep murdering and slaughtering in Gaza. The real reason they're doing it is because they want to take the land and they're not hiding it. They have maps of greater Israel. They talk about it openly, how they're going to take all that land. So the hostages is a giant piece of propaganda for Israel. That's why they didn't do the last part of the ceasefire. But you might have thought, well, that's to be fair. I mean, of course, the Israeli State Department is going to do Israeli propaganda, but that was the US State Department. Now, look, I know what everybody's thinking. There is no difference between the US State Department and the Israeli State Department. You've never seen in your lifetime the US State Department say, Israel's wrong and we condemn them. Even when they murder Americans, which they've done a number of times now in the occupied territories recently. Have you even heard the US State Department even mildly complain? There'll be like a press release, it's unfortunate that an American citizen was killed, but I'm sure it was Hamas's fault, even though Israel, sometimes literally again, sniper shots from hundreds of yards away, headshot, okay? So it's super embarrassing that we serve another country. And literally everyone knows it. And in fact, even the Israel supporters now online are bragging about it, going, yeah, that's right. What are you gonna do about it? Cry harder. Ha ha. We run this place.
It's beyond shameful. So the IDF has confirmed that they did in fact open fire on the paramedics' vehicle, but claimed that it was unmarked and was advancing suspiciously. That's what they claim. Now, the Palestinian Red Crescent alleges that both of the vehicles were in fact marked as humanitarian personnel. And the workers within the vehicle also were clearly marked, just like the journalists who have the press vests on are clearly marked as journalists, but they get killed anyway. Now, of the 15 dead paramedics, or medics, I should say, 8 were from the Palestinian Red Crescent, 6 were from Gaza's Civil Defense Emergency Unit, and 1 was a staffer from UNRWA. Now, according to the UN, the teams were killed one by one on March 23rd. As they went to retrieve casualties in Rafah. The IDF said an initial assessment determined that the troops killed a Hamas operative named Mohammed Amin Shobaki and 8 other militants. However, none of the dead staffers from the Red Crescent and Civil Defense had that name, and no other bodies were reported found at the site. The IDF did not immediately respond to requests for names of the other alleged militants killed or for comment on how the emergency workers came to be buried in that shallow grave.
Yeah, look, again, the whole world knows they're lying. They can't point to a single Hamas member there, but they think it doesn't matter. We can do the most outrageous lie.
And they're right.
And we'll get this US State Department and the US president and every politician in America to repeat that lie for us.
Yeah, they're right.
And by the way, we think the right wing in America is mindless. So we'll just get them to be our robots. And they'll go out there, if Trump says it and his State Department says it, like dogs, they'll go out there and say, of course, Israel should be able to slaughter anyone and we should write them a blank check. I think they're gonna find out that that's not gonna last too much longer. But we'll find out, maybe, because Netanyahu already knows about the American left. He's now starting to say they're like radical Islamists. So we're about to be terrorists. When the right wing turns on Israel, you'll also be terrorists because Israel runs this place.
While the IDF continues its rampage in Gaza, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is facing some problems domestically. So yesterday, 2 of his aides were arrested in connection to, get a load of this, improper payments with the country of Qatar. Now, here's what we know according to the judge overseeing the case. The judge writes that in the period under investigation, an American lobbying company called the Third Circle, owned by lobbyist Jay Footlick, formed a direct connection with Netanyahu aide Jonathan Urich in order to put a positive spin on Doha's role as a facilitator in the hostage deal negotiations between Israel and Hamas. The judge adds that Qatar also wanted Urich to spread negative messaging about Egypt's role in the negotiations as part of efforts to improve Qatar's image on the issue. Now, there's an Israeli businessman by the name of Gil Berger, and he's also involved in all of this. Last week, he told Israel's public broadcaster that he transferred money to the other Netanyahu aide by the name of Eli Feldstein on behalf of a US lobbyist working for Qatar. Last year, Feldstein was charged with and arrested for leaking classified information to foreign news outlets. Now, Netanyahu was summoned to court to testify in his aides' case. However, Netanyahu is not a suspect himself. So in a video statement released after what he said was an hour of testimony, Netanyahu accused Israeli police of seeking to topple his right-wing government. So Netanyahu is currently attempting to replace Ronen Bar, who's the head of the Israeli Shin Bet. And Shin Bet is overseeing the Qatar case alongside Israeli police. Netanyahu, who's also, by the way, facing numerous corruption charges, is also trying to replace Israel's attorney general. So protesters have taken to the streets of Israel, accusing the prime minister of undermining Israel's democracy.
Yeah, so look, there's 2 different issues here. One is, what the hell did they do with Qatar? Because they funneled money to Hamas through Qatar. I thought Hamas was the devil and Hamas made you do everything. So why did you finance them all these years? Or was it super convenient for the right wing in Israel to say, oh, look at terrible Hamas. we must destroy everything in Gaza and take all that land because of Hamas, who we funneled all this money to and supported. Oh, interesting. And now when we're about to find out what your aides did, and by the way, maybe even taking money for themselves because there's bribery and money laundering, et cetera, charges in there, all of a sudden you want to fire the attorney general and the head of Shin Bet. Okay, so now we're gonna find out, like we are in Turkey and to some degree here in America, does Israel have a democracy that remains? Because if you let him remove the attorney general and the head of the police, basically, you're saying it's lawless. Just like Erdogan removing his top political opponent, Putin did it earlier, et cetera. Here in America, we're fighting Trump, saying ignoring the courts. So I don't think Israel's a democracy in the first place because they occupy 5.5 million other people. It doesn't count if you don't let other people you occupy vote. But within Israel, they had a couple of good things. They had good functioning press that would challenge the government frequently. They have good protests. People go on the streets and fight for what they believe in. There's things to praise inside there, right?
It's democracy light.
Yeah, it's kind of democracy. But if you take away anyone investigating the executive branch, in this case Netanyahu, you don't have a democracy left. So we'll see, is Israel in favor of becoming an authoritarian government, not just for the Palestinians, but for the Jewish citizens as well, or if they're gonna fight back against Netanyahu? Only time will tell. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.